Hi guys, well in our first of many Intel Z270 reviews, we're going to be taking a look at a Gigabyte board under the new AORUS brand. This is the Z270X-Gaming 7, and we actually use this board here to review the new Kaby Lake processors, which is going to be featured in separate content. So many of you will be wondering why the name AORUS. Well, up until now, AORUS was reserved as a completely different entity for gaming laptops. The original idea was to really have the brand separate and unassociated to Gigabyte, but this has now changed, and AORUS is going to represent the very best of what Gigabyte has to offer. Along with a new series, we have a fresh new design which really catches the eye. Across the board, Gigabyte has used a two-tone theme, and as well as essential Z270 features, with this being an AORUS board, there are flagship features which mark this out as a premium offering. Now, pricing is going to be available on January 5th. Intel have actually prevented us from giving official pricing until then, so we're just going to be giving you an estimate which will be around £200 in the UK, and then in the US it's going to be between $200 and $250, which actually isn't too bad when we're dealing here with one of Gigabyte's top-end gaming lines. But for that cost, we do expect no compromises, and in today's video we're going to be taking a comprehensive overview of Gaming 7, giving it a comprehensive examination and finding out if it really is worth that asking price. So as ever guys, if you've got any questions, ask away. Right guys, well, we're going to start with the unboxing experience for our Gaming 7. So this is what our AORUS branding looks like. And if we just flip it over the box, we can see all of those significant and fundamental features that our Gaming 7 comes bundled with. Now we're going to go through all of this stuff in our video, so we'll just briefly mention a few things. RGB lighting is a big thing for this board, and we're going to have a look at that later. We're going to do a demo of that. We've got Creative Soundcore 3D, which is a quad-core audio processor. That is a big feature. And of course, Thunderbolt. Gigabyte are renowned for getting behind Thunderbolt, and now that it is in its third iteration, this board comes bundled with it. Now, inside the box, first of all, we get the motherboard here in this nice tray, and it's in an anti-static bag. That comes well protected. And then we have the bundled accessories. So we'll just go through these now. So first of all, we have the driver CD. Now, we've said this many times before, why aren't we supplied with USB instead of a CD? It would be so much easier to access all the software, the drivers that we need, and particularly for us, when we didn't have a product page we could go to before launch, this CD was a bit problematic. We had to basically get a laptop, share the folder, share the drive across the network, and then access those files. So it was a bit of an annoyance, that. But I know many of you guys are ditching your DVD drives and you use USB instead, so we would prefer that. Gigabyte HQ, if you are listening to this, please use USB in future. But anyway, that has all your software, all your utilities, and your drivers. Then we have the user manual, which contains all those technical details that you might need if you get stuck, and also guides you through some things like RAID. Quick installation guide for getting up and running. We have the labels there for matching up all your storage, so that can be quite handy to have. Rear I/O shield, which is cushioned. Two packets here with your SATA cables. There are 4 cables inside there. And then we have the SLI bridge, and that one there is a high bandwidth one. So for the new technology which NVIDIA introduced in the new series of graphics cards, the 10 series, that is going to come very useful for you guys who are using 2 cards. Got some little covers there for the HDMI, if you can just pick that up. G-Connect for your front of your case, that is, so it makes it much easier for getting your cables into the motherboard. Some grip ties for tidying up your cables inside for your storage. We have the RGB extension cable, and then we have some thermal sensor cables. There are 2 there, and last of all, can't miss this one out, we've got a sticker. Okay, so here is Z270X-Gaming 7. So this is a new design for Gigabyte, and we have to say that they have certainly raised the bar with the styling. So across the board we have a combination of white and black being used. We also have RGB LED lighting with a number of different zones which can be customized. Not only can the colours be changed, but effects can be applied too, and at the end we'll demonstrate how this looks. And so it really doesn't matter what colour the other hardware is that's being installed, because we can tweak the lighting on this board to match. But what we would say is that black or white hardware is probably going to be the sleekest route. And you can see how nice this black Corsair Vengeance LPX looks on this board. Now the other thing to note is that this board does conform to the ATX form factor, so it will fit inside most mid-towers. We're now going to move in for a closer look at the different areas of this board. So let's start at the CPU socket. So this is LGA 1151, as we've already said. There is no socket change between KB and Skylake. So if you do have a Skylake chip like the 6700K, then it will work perfectly on this board. But really, to get the most out of this Z270 board, you'd be better off there with a 7th gen chip like the 7700K. And as we've already seen on previous Gigabyte boards, this AORUS offering also benefits from the 15 micro-inch gold-plated socket for better longevity and contact. Now, Gaming 7 utilises a 12-phase power design, which is digital, and we have long life black caps used throughout, which offer up to 10,000 hours. Covering the MOSFETs, we have a dual heatsink design, which has that white and black styling, and both heatsinks are linked with a copper heat pipe. Behind the top heatsink, we have the CPU power, which is an 8-pin socket. We also have 2 CPU fan headers by the socket, 2 dedicated headers for water pumps, and another 4 headers dotted around the board, bringing the total there up to 8, which is going to come in very handy. Moving on to the memory area, we of course have 4 slots. Now those are reinforced with steel, and there is RGB lighting which will show at the end. So we're dealing with dual channel DDR4 here, with support for up to 64 gig, up to 4000 megahertz, and XMP2 is available as well. Accompanying these, we have some additional features in and around the DDR4, as this is a premium board, and so we have voltage measurement points for use with a multimeter, onboard power, eco and OC buttons. Eco uses low power, OC sets the CPU at a predefined overclock, usually applying more voltage than necessary just to ensure the stability. We also have a smaller reset button with the reset CMOS, and then down the edge we have an overlay LED strip which lights up, and these can be swapped out for different patterns and designs. Now you're going to see different brands implement USB 3.1 headers on their boards with the Z270 chipset, but Gigabyte has decided to stick with USB 3 and has given 2 headers. Next up we have the storage, which involves a selection of different standards. So first of all we have triple SATA Express, which gives us a total of 6 independent SATA 6G ports. Then we have a single U.2 port, which of course uses NVMe, taking advantage there of PCI Express Gen 3 for up to 32 gig a second. And then we have dual M.2, again tapping into NVMe for 32 gig a second, and since we have 2 of those, you have the option there to perhaps do RAID 0. So plenty of options there for the storage. Behind those SATA ports we have the Intel Z270 chip with a substantial heatsink sitting over it, and you can judge there by the size that it is more than up to the job of cooling it. Next up we have the PCI Express region, which is populated by triple PCI Express 3.0 X16s and triple PCI Express 3.0 X1s, and the modes for each of those X16s are 16, 8 and 4. So if you are using a single card there, use that top one, and adding in more than one card will mean that the mode will drop to that lowest figure. And you can see that Gigabyte has carried through that steel reinforcement there from the previous boards, so we get extra protection for large graphics cards, and it will mean the board will stand the test of time. SLI and Crossfire are fully supported too. Now just below the PCI Express we also have a few additional features. Gaming 7 includes a debug panel which will help you troubleshoot any problems on boot up, as will the diagnostic LEDs just above. Also along the bottom we have an RGB header for use with the RGB lighting strips inside your chassis. This header works with the RGB Fusion software. With Gaming 7 we get a switch to enable or disable dual BIOS, and then we have another switch there to choose BIOS 1 or BIOS 2. And the last switch is for audio gain, allowing you to switch from 2.5 to 6 for either speakers or headphones. Immediately next to the PCI Express we have the audio solution. So to get a better view of this, we'll just remove that cover. So at the center of that audio solution is Creative's quad-core processor named Soundcore 3D. All the components there are isolated for less interference, and those components consist of Japanese Nichicon solid caps for great audio, and we see a return of Amp Up, which is the upgradable OP amp, so you can upgrade to better audio directly from your motherboard. Included with this board, you also get Creative's SBX Pro Studio Suite to get the most out of your audio. Okay, and lastly we arrive at the rear I/O section of Gaming 7, and this gives us the following options: PS2 keyboard mouse, 2 USB 3.1 Gen 1 ports, DisplayPort with HDMI, another 2 USB 3.1 Gen 1 ports, dual gigabit LAN that is via the Killer E2500 and the Intel i219 controller, a single USB 3.1 Type-C which gives us Thunderbolt 3, another 2 USB 3.1 Type-A's, one is Gen 1 and the other is Gen 2. And then finally we have all those audio ports there which are gold plated. Now Gigabyte are big on Thunderbolt, and with this third installment now being available, they've made use of it via the Type-C port, which can give us up to 40 gig a second, and so that gives you a multitude of different applications as well as support for forthcoming devices. Now before we round things off, we have the lighting configuration, which can be adjusted using the RGB Fusion software. With this software there is a basic and an advanced panel. Inside the advanced, different zones can be modified independently with different colours and different animations. Under the basic we have many options too for tweaking the lighting, as well as giving you the option there to save, export and import profiles. So here is a demo of how this looks. Okay, so there is the new AORUS Z270X-Gaming 7, and testament to the caliber of this board is the very fact that we used it to review the new Kaby Lake CPUs. Now I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys, there is actually very little difference between the Z170 and Z270 in terms of the new chipset features. Fundamentally what we're getting is very small modifications to certain features, but there is definitely no huge jump there in technology from the previous generation. And so this here and other boards are really going to be relevant here to guys who are perhaps buying new from an age-old PC, or if you simply like to keep up to date with the latest. Obviously brands like Gigabyte can only do the best that they can with what they're given by way of the chipset. And so what we're presented with here in the Gaming 7 is very good indeed. As you can see there, just from the visual aspect, it looks stunning with that new design. They've done a top job there with the aesthetics. We have the steel reinforcement on the PCI Express and the memory. Numerous storage options, a dual M.2. We've got up to 8 headers, including dedicated pump support, all of which can be set to either PWM or voltage mode. Over on the back panel we have a heavy presence there of USB 3.1, and Gigabyte has really got behind Thunderbolt 3, which taps into super high bandwidth of up to 40 gig a second. And we saw with previous generation of boards the RGB action, and as can be expected with the new chipset, brands have gone all out, and Gaming 7 is no exception. Granted that this might not be for everyone, there is an option there to turn off the lighting if you don't like that. And so AORUS is really going to represent Gigabyte's top end, and Gaming 7 is a fantastic board to serve the needs of those wanting to get the most out of their gaming and their computing experience. We managed to overclock and achieve a 5 gig overclock on our 7700K with this board, and at 4.9 we actually managed to nudge the voltage right down. So for that overclock and for all the benchmarks for this board, please head over to the full review, which is going to be on the screen and in the description. Thanks for taking your time out today, guys, to check out this video. Please check out our other Z270 videos. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one.